All right, then. Okay, so DrGrrr, do you know how the intro thing goes?
I hear that I don't hear it.
Yes, you don't hear it. So I
So it's just gonna
say,
be quiet for a while.
welcome to Commander's Horn, doot doot doot, all this stuff on this episode of Commander's Horn, and then there's like a little bit of silence, and then I come back, and that's like it's like the only weird thing that catches people off guard.
All right.
And then I say today's date, and then I say hi, and that's how it's gonna go.
Sounds good.
All right, we are gonna get things started right almost now. All right. Three, two, one.
Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
It's Commander's Horn episode 99. Are you suffering from high salt content, tilt rash, or an RNG infection? Are you looking for therapy following the loss of your engines? Do you need a prescription for MMR supplements? The doctor is in. Team Rankstar writer, streamer, and veteran of the Wild Hunt Philly tournament, DrGrrr joins me on this episode of Commander's Horn. Good afternoon, friends. It is November 15th, 2018, and this is Commander's Horn, a weekly Gwent podcast. I am your host, Dane McBeard, and today I am joined by a person that 9 out of 10 doctors agree is a good player, and he's also a Gwent enthusiast. DrGrrr, welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
So how are things these days? You streamed even earlier today? Let's start there. How's your latest experience with Gwent going? How's your stream this morning?
So, quick correction. I was actually working today, so I'll be streaming probably later.
Okay.
But my Gwent experience right now is pretty solid, I guess. I've been playing a lot of Lippy because I really want to figure out how to play that deck. I would say it has a very, very high skill ceiling, so I haven't really quite reached that yet. By skill ceiling, I mean skill floor. So like it's very hard to play the deck, and it has a lot of potential. So I've been having a lot of trouble with it, but as some people might know, I'm a fan of Dark Souls in general, and just trying things that are way too hard for me, and then slowly but steadily gaining that success. So I'm really excited to actually finally figure out Lippy. But Gwent as a whole right now is, I would say, pretty interesting. And I'm sure we're going to go more into that in the podcast. So let's do it.
Yeah, because this is going to be a podcast that's it's like the return to the strategy section. So you DrGrrr. I mean, let's slow down a second. So, DrGrrr, who are you? Where are you from? How did you get into Gwent? Let's actually let people get to know you here first before we just start jumping all over the meta and talking about, what's going on here.
Sounds good. I feel like I have a really strange and slow-moving story of getting into Gwent.
Okay.
I guess it all started with getting an Xbox, like right when I graduated college. I was like, oh, I really want to check out video games again. And then playing The Witcher 3 and loving The Witcher 3, loving Gwent, getting an invite to open beta, not playing it, getting an invite to closed beta, starting to play it, falling in love with it, printing out cards, like playing with friends, like trying to get people into this game.
Nice.
And then just slowly learning more about Gwent, finding out about Twitch, starting to watch streamers, like starting to watch Gwent whenever I didn't have the chance to play Gwent because I had a console. And I didn't really have a laptop and stuff like that. And then eventually figuring out that I really loved the Gwent community. I spent a lot of time on Twitch, and I actually watched a ton of streamers. Of course, you, McBeard, of course. I listened to a bunch of podcasts.
Oh, thanks.
I found out that I really wanted to spend a lot of time this game, so that's how that happened. And here I am. And Wild Hunt, that happened as well.
Yes. You've been to both Wild Hunt tournaments. You even made it to the finals in Wild Hunt 1.
I did. That is when I actually had the opportunity to meet everyone in the community. And that's when I realized, wow, this is kind of a family that I want to be a part of and I want to kind of contribute to. So I'm really happy that I actually made it all the way out to Philly and got to hang out with you all. Thanks, guys.
both times.
Everyone
both times.
Chat.
So sorry, if you just missed it, there's some cheers happening in the chat here. I just want to say shout out to Decode789 for cheering and being a hell of a commando right here. But I just wanted to say, if I missed it there, when you say coming all the way to Philly, are you on the other coast?
No, I'm in Boston.
Oh,
it's
Boston.
Not really that far, to be honest, but any travel is a big deal for me.
Mhm.
I don't travel very much, so going to Philly was kind of a big deal for me, and I think it really paid off. So
Yeah.
I'm happy I did it.
I believe fellow commandos DG Thunder and Rendusi are also from Boston.
That is
I think
correct.
that, yeah.
And Kochua, the winner
And
of Wild
Kocho.
Hunt 2. Yep,
Right.
also
And
from Boston.
all people present for the Wild Hunt tournaments as well. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool stuff. So Boston, lots of talent in there in Boston. So that's great. So you're just a clear fan of the game. You've been obviously to come all the way out to both Wild Hunts and now you're writing very large articles for Team Rankstar over there. So you've been finding Homecoming to be you're still enjoying covering it because one of the big unfortunate news stories is that there is a polarizing opinion about the game since it has changed so much. So in its changes, me personally, I am still having a lot of fun playing the game, and it seems like you are as well. If you're writing articles like this, I imagine that is the case.
Yeah, I definitely am. In fact, I really discovered that I like scratching this writing article itch that I have very recently. I think it kind of coincides with this interest in like figuring out a meta for a tournament that happened to me in Wild Hunt 1 and Wild Hunt 2. Like it has like a lot of similarities with trying to figure out what to bring to a tournament. Because like in a tournament, you have like this weird setting where you want to think about what other people are bringing to the tournament meta, and you have to think about, okay, like how do I want to counter that? How like what sort of decks are out there? You have to think about everything that's on the playing field, right? And this article kind of does a very similar thing. I'm just interested in finding out every single deck that exists, basically, like trying to figure out what I think would work and what wouldn't work. Trying to talk about every single one in that sort of detail, and then really figuring out what I want to play. So by doing so, I feel like I'm able to open up the meta to other people who don't necessarily have that time to invest in like really investigating every single piece of the puzzle of this meta right now. And it satisfies me and it satisfies other people. So why shouldn't I be doing it? So I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm really happy that I end up going through with this, even though it's a lot of hard work. And here I am enjoying the game and sharing it with other people.
Right on. I mean, that's kind of, those are the people that we want in the community. Absolutely. People that just want to put their efforts into understanding and playing. So the link is in the chat as well. It's been floating around, and the link will be in the show notes as well to the article. So there is that. So, I mean, at this point, so when you talk about, understanding and wanting to play and share all this information, how much research goes into it? Obviously a lot of gameplay, but obviously a lot of conversation as well. Now, this isn't really a meta ranking. You're not so much telling people what the best thing is. You're telling people what is competitive and what's out there and what you can achieve with. So, is this more so testing on your end, or is it a little bit of both, a little bit of team conversation?
Oh, it's definitely a lot of team conversations. I would say it's mostly team conversations and me investigating all the avenues of resources that I have available to me. I would say that it's a really weird balance. Like I've never really been in this like content creation sort of side. Like the only content creation I've done in the past has really just been streaming. And so by streaming, you're essentially just playing the game. But by writing an article, by like doing the research of all these different decks that are in the meta, you're not really spending as much time, or I'm not spending as much time as I'd like actually playing the game and testing out every single deck. I put 19 decks in that guide, and there was no way I was going to test every single one before I put it out there.
19 decks. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot to even write about, like, especially when you have
way too much.
I don't think it's too much. I mean, you stream, you know what it's like. I mean, I've seen it in my stream. I've seen it in YouTube comments and tweets. People are hungry for decks. Like, if you are hungry, this is a party platter that's been put together here by DrGrrrr. So we're gonna dig into that. We're gonna dig into this. This is gonna be, we're gonna have a fairly deep strategy section. But before we get into that, there is some light Gwent news. So it's so light, I don't even think I'm going to be doing a drop for it. I think it's just kind of a few things that I wanted to address. But the first thing is that Commander's Horn is recorded live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/McBearded, and will be posted on YouTube, where you can find me as McBeard. All episodes of Commander's Horn can be found at commandershorn.com. All Commander's Horn videos are uploaded to YouTube as well, and our feed is out to iTunes. Commander's Horn does record on Thursdays, which is today, and next week on November 22nd will be the Commander's Horn 100th episode bash. So at the end of the podcast, I'll be talking about how you can help. But if you have a way of just sending some, there's an easy way to get started. add commandershornpodcast@gmail.com on Skype. And if you want to send some messages, or if you want to send some video messages, something that you can do really easily on Skype, would love to hear from the fans out there. So throw some stuff my way, and we have some special interviews coming up. But finally, I just wanted to say this episode is brought to you by the Commandos. Our patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. Thanks so much to Powell F for joining the ranks of the Commandos this week. And if you're a gold patron, we're looking for people to I would like to do some content promotion, much like this is going to be a great promotion for Team Rankstar, as they have a very talented writer in DrGrrrr right here. So I'll use that spot right here, because everybody, you're working with my boy Flake at Team Rankstar, so a lot of love from me going out to those guys as well. But yeah, DrGrrrr, let's talk really quickly about some news. Now I don't know, are you a real art buff? I mean, Gwent has some of the best art you'll ever see in any card game, probably for the foreseeable future, and I'm sure you can appreciate that. But are you a huge art buff?
What type of art are we talking about? Are we talking about visual art? Are we talking about audio?
Well, I mean, like,
art? Are we
do you
about,
have like a favorite artist, let's say, in Gwent? Like, is there a card, like when you heard that Anna P, and I want to make sure that I get the pronunciation perfectly, but it's Anna Podwona, I think. This was actually news. This is actually an interesting piece of news, that in that it was reported on and it was shown on, it was commented on Reddit, just because this is how important the art is to some of the Gwent fans, and some of the best art. I mean, you could say this about almost every artist that does Gwent art, because some of the best art is from all of the artists. But standouts like Phoenix, and a couple others in the chat's probably going to throw out their favorites as well as we talk about this. But it's actually the fact that it was a story that Anna had moved over to a different company. Is this kind of thing, do you think that this is like newsworthy with a game that is so art forward as Gwent?
Oh, of course. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, I think that the art is generally what a lot of people gravitate to with Gwent, and it's just so prominent, especially with like the new homecoming version of the game. Like, with only 2 rows, like all these cards are so much larger. Like, they got rid of borders because they really want like the art to be like the centerpiece of every single card. So yeah, it is sad but realistic news.
Got Vilgefortz, Triss Butterfly Spell, and there's a number of others as well I've seen referenced. So yeah, just like a huge sorry about that, like a huge chunk of represented art. So it's just, anyway, so just I don't think I have the do I have the Commander's Horn? I don't think I have the Commander's Horn noise available, which is crazy because I used to. But I will just say, we'll just do a shout of the Commandos and kind of an imaginary sound of the horn to Anna P, as she moves on.
Commandos!
So throwing that out there. And also, the other news is that there's a roadmap expected soon. Powell Berja on CD Projekt Red forums has said that we are expecting a roadmap. And now that we have a foundation for the game, and now we can kind of see like where the future tuning is going to go and where the future of gameplay is going to feel like, planning on building on that card pool, it actually feels like we're going to get, we're actually getting new content now. And we've seen cards change, we've seen mechanics change, we've seen some cards be added, but usually the game changes so much it's almost like everything is new. But this is a real content drop that's coming in the future, in expansions and cards and whatever we're going to see on this roadmap. What are you most looking forward to, DrGrrrr, out of all these potential things that you could see, especially when we consider that there's a lot of stuff that used to be in the game that isn't at the moment? I mean, what do you think like the next content block's going to look like?
So something I'm really excited about, especially with how the meta looks right now, is armor making a comeback. Because armor is like such a unique like Gwent ability that will just like completely change the meta as it is at this moment, because pings are so important. Like Ithne will just like struggle against armor. Like lining up things will not matter with her pings because armor exists. Like Croc, Bloodthirst is not going to exist with armor, right? Like there's just so many things that can change because armor becomes a part of the game, that like I'm really excited to see that sort of upheaval. Like already we've only had this meta for like what, a week or something?
Yeah.
And like obviously everyone's hungry for more, but armor is something in particular that I'm very, very excited about. And I've never really been like an Redanian fan, right? Like I never really played like King. I keep thinking Fultus. The guy with the chains, Radovid. There we go.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Right.
yeah. Well, Full Test
But,
was kind of like the armor. He was the
yeah.
armor guy, right?
And like in the last patch of beta for sure. But like having Redania added will just be so cool, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
However it comes. So meeting up with old friends, because there's a lot of Dagon. Oh, like where are you? A lot of love for Dagon. A lot of people coming back to the game and saying, "Wait, Dagon's not here anymore." So,
Mhm.
there's a lot of interesting things where I'm not really sure where they're going to take it, because we
Yeah,
know
agreed.
that a new faction is there's plans for it. We know that things were taken out of the game and they're going to return, and we know that there are like a lot of leaders that are a lot of expansion ideas, like the vampire idea that's always been floating around, the idea of oh, what was the other thing that I was thinking of? We've seen Anna Henrietta out there as like a potential leader. We've seen Oriana shown, like lots of Toussaint stuff. Like where I'm curious as like if the vampire expansion is more cards, is there going to be like a future expansion that brings in new factions, or is the new faction going to be something that's going to be added before expansions as a base thing? Are we just going to get used to having 6 factions? I mean, I really don't know like what to expect anymore. But what I am happy about is it seems like the game still has ongoing events, like the special arenas and now the premium keg sale and stuff like that. So it seems like something could be around the corner at any time. And console launch, where I feel like all bets are off once console hits, like once December 4th hits, I feel like all sorts of stuff could be happening. So got my eye on that day.
For sure. I think something else I'd be excited for in the future is
Mm-hmm.
just having a bunch of like single player events. I know like the CDPR studio has been very, very busy with Thronebreaker, but
Mm-hmm.
like that's something that I really, really enjoyed. Like over like I think a year ago now, like the Salvine event, the Mahakam event,
Mm-hmm.
those like couple 2 week period I think they were like events like were really, really exciting because we got to see like these interesting interactions that you wouldn't see in normal Gwent, and you got to like play a little storyline and get some cool I guess frames and avatars out of them, right? So it was very
Yeah.
exciting to go through there, and it especially reminded me of the challenges that like beginners got to play in order to unlock leaders, because
Mm-hmm.
those were essential in like getting me into the game when I first started playing, like getting me used to the concepts of the game and like struggling with some of the challenges perhaps, and like overcoming those challenges like really meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just excited for more potentially really small but single player content out there, just to kind of help like some beginners, as I remember I was once into the game, because I know there is a lot of resources that are kind of lacking right now for beginners in particular, and I think they're a really, really important
Mm-hmm.
population of Gwent players right now.
I feel like a lot of us are still kind of beginners, a little bit. Like there's still like super subtle things that I'm starting to like really hone in on, like different decks and like different like how many cards do I want in my hand before I make this play? Like every time I make this play, like what am I expecting on turn 6 or 5? Like it's starting to become like very like specific, like stages of the game like are starting to like form, like where the first 3 cards that are played, like how that sort of like fighting for board presence part before it's like, all right, now it's time to like start throwing some real punches here. Like I really like the flow of the game right now personally.
Hmm.
So I'm liking, I really want to see like once, like that's where balance makes me the most excited, because when things are balanced, then the flow of the game starts to be where the fun is had. Because when things are like skewed off, you have things like purely artifact, like first 3 turns where your opponent can just scorch or epidemic your whole board twice on the next following 2 turns or something like that. And that was really bad, because that shrouded the whole strategy of the first round, because it just became surviving that crap. And then the hotfix came and things started to become a little bit more clear. So I think that when balance gets tweaked a little bit more, then it's going to be, that kind of settling down and like understanding each faction and what the tools they have available, and not just being able to predict, oh well, this is the Witcher turn or whatever, like that.
Yeah.
Like the neutrals that dominate the game and make it very samey in that way. And it's not even that I don't even like a card that can thin or do what the Witchers do specifically. It's that it's so samey. And I think that, I mean, how else do you do this? And I just got to say shout out one more time to Decode 789. He's just throwing so much support and so much stuff into the chat right now. And we have our alerts turned off for the podcast. But I'm just going to say ding, ding, ding. And I'm going to make all the noises because I'm really appreciating. Thank you so much for the support right there. So just another quick break there.
Command
Randos.
So anyway, that being said, I think that there's a lot to talk about with the strength and weaknesses of all these decks, and how the meta has been forming around these things. So I think it's time to do a real strategy drop, because I haven't used this drop in a while, and talk to DrGrrrr about the state of the homecoming meta.
Maybe not today and not tomorrow, but someday someone will find a way to take you down.
Unfortunately, the scene switch did say news anyway. But I still got to play the drop. DrGrrrr wrote a meta snapshot article, which, once again, you can find it in the show notes and shortly in the chat as well, detailing, how many was it? 19 decks. 19 different decks that all have competitive potential, and this covers all factions and all competitive potential within these factions. And, it's a lot to take in. So, I mean, for a newer player, for a player that was kind of getting a grasp on, understanding why things might be strong or why the list might be formed in this way, as opposed to maybe what this particular player thinks is strong in his or her own mind. How would you approach this kind of information, and where would you look first, I think?
So I think I tried to write a little bit about the hotfix before I even shared the deck lists, because I kind of wanted to ease players into what the new meta could look like. And given this is barely a week after the hotfix hit, so people have just been barely getting into playing the game enough times to figure out what's going on. So I felt pressed for time, naturally. But more importantly, the fact that we were seeing certain cards being played a lot meant that those are the ones in particular that you should be looking at, and these are the reasons detailed in the deck lists why they're so strong right now. Additionally, it's probably important to note that a lot of these deck lists are either optimized by me or by some of my teammates or by some collaborators that I know of, or some of my friends. And so they might not be as optimized for the meta that the meta is shifting into. And so naturally card changes can happen, and maybe a week from now they might not be as viable as they are right now. I think I wanted a snapshot to happen because I wanted to give people an opportunity, a jumping off point for right now. A jumping off point for people maybe who don't really have the time to build a deck, kind of get to see almost everything that's in there and choose something that they want to play. So yeah, that's how my mind works, I guess.
I mean, I think that's what's good. And another good thing about, saying that this is a jumping off point for new players, all factions are represented here. So it's not so much skewing specifically, and it's not ranked either. So it's not saying that, X is the best deck, X equals whatever deck you hate the most, I imagine. But I do like that all the factions are represented. So I wanted to talk to you about Skellige here. So Skellige is a faction here that's represented. All leaders are represented here. You have Croc lists, Herald lists, Brand list, and you have oh wait, you know what? There is no Est list. Well, I guess I guess I could ask you two questions now. I guess, would you say, do you like the leader representation in Skellige, or do you think, or what is holding Est back specifically? I guess I'm going to ask you both of those questions.
So, Est is definitely a weak point in the article in general. I don't think my resources extended far enough to find a solid Est list that I felt comfortable sharing in this article in particular. There might be one out there, and I constantly feel the need to warn people, this is not everything that's in the meta. This is everything that I think is in the meta. And so if someone says why isn't I don't know, Death Wish in there anymore, right? Why, I know you had it in the last article, why isn't it in here right now? And it's partially my own interpretation of how the meta is. I don't believe that Death Wish necessarily stands up as well with a lot of these decks as maybe some of these other monsters lists. So I apologize that your favorite deck wasn't included in this, but I just don't think that it would fit as well. Anyways, returning to Iced, I think one major problem with Skellige in general is the fact that a certain card, who must not be named,
Does his name
really, it counters a ton of it already. Like I did include a list that is extremely countered by that one vegetable fruit, excuse me.
I'm talking about
But like
Xavier Lemons, everybody, just in case you are not hip to this card. Xavier Lemons does destroy your opponent's graveyard. That's it. That's all you need to know about it.
yeah,
So you
just
can imagine that really hurts any graveyard related strategies.
And like Skellige has like canonically been this sort of graveyard faction in general. And so like having a card like that in the game just like immediately cancels out a lot of opportunities that Skellige could have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see that I think Lemons is definitely like the strongest meta, I don't know, the meta shifter, I guess, shapeshifter, whatever.
Yeah.
He's like forming the meta somewhat because like he's just able to cover so much ground with his effect. And so like a lot of these like interesting cards, which could be a thing, like cannot exist because of him.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of drifting from the point here. You asked about leaders in particular, and I think the reason why we have these leaders shown in my decks, I think I have 4 with Croc or something. One with Herald and one with Bran.
Yeah.
Let me check my internet connection here.
Yeah, sorry, we're getting a little bit. There's a little bit of video freezing here, so we may just have to.
Might be dropping out here.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
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 I can hear you.
1, 2, 3.
I mean, you
hello,
are.
Hello.
He can't hear.
Hello.
Me. No.
Hello. Hello.
We might have to do a little snip on this one.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, I can hear him. Is it? It's not on me, is it? I think I'm fine. Now he's gone altogether. I'll just. I mean, he thinks he lost me, right? He thinks he lost me. So, Doctor, is the doctor in?
Hello.
Hello.
I think I'm back. Am I back?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Because you couldn't hear me before because you were saying hello, but you couldn't hear me. So,
apologies.
We're good. We're
Yeah,
good. All right.
we're good.
We don't need to cut any of that stuff. That's exciting live broadcast craziness. That's what you tune in for, my friends. Well, we were talking about Skellige stuff. You're talking about how your list you had 4 Croc lists. Yeah, Croc's pretty strong, as an engine leader, but also, the value of the ping for me is huge. I don't know, a lot of these lists that I've seen, specifically, not necessarily this one, but there are spear based lists for Croc, the Mastercrafted Spear, that is, and I I personally think that if you have a ping like with Ethna or Croc, like that's just so valuable at all times. If you want to run something like Ericus Venom or anything you need to line up, like even Scorch opportunities and Geralt Professional, we talked about. I think maybe I was in your stream where we talked about how Geralt Professional, if you have